Here, I'm going to demonstrate how to inlay patterns into royal icing. This technique has many applications. You can create marble effects, dots, hearts, swirls. In this example, we'll be looking at this basic heart vine pattern, beginning with the roof design. Begin by marking the roof parts with horizontal stripes. Use a ruler as guide and a knife or sharp implement to etch lightly into the surface of the cookie. There are lots of examples of how to do this in other videos within this series. For this method, get all your supplies ready before you begin. You will need a toothpick or skewer, a cloth or piece of parchment paper for wiping off the toothpick, all of your icing ready to go in piping bags. When we work with inlaid designs, typically we use 2 or more contrasting colors of icing. One color acts as the base, and one color gets inlaid. There are 3 keys to this method. Key number 1, make sure that the consistency of the royal icing, both for the base and for the inlay, are the same. The consistency should be loose like flood icing. It's a good idea to practice this method and test your icing before you begin. Key number 2, work swiftly. Royal icing begins to crust almost immediately. You can't afford to stop once you've gotten started. Key number 3, work on small sections at a time. Big sections are much harder to manage. You'll notice how I've segmented this design into many smaller parts. That's because it's the best way to accomplish the task. When dealing with circular sections of a design like this, mark your dots first at the 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock spots. Then fill in the spaces in between. This ensures that your dots are evenly spaced with no gaps or squished bits at the end. This quilted Harlequin design is one of my favorite all-time gingerbread house decorations. With the two tones of brown, I love how it looks like a pair of milk and dark chocolate bars fused together. Begin by marking each wall piece with crisscrossing diagonal lines. Use both sides of the ruler to make the distance between each line uniform. Begin by filling in every other diamond shape with light brown flood icing. Lay down the outside lines well within the perimeter of the markings. Then pull the icing to meet its outermost edge. That way, the icing will be thinnest at the edges and more concentrated in the center. That is what creates the 3D quilted effect. Allow all the parts to dry. Once the parts are dry, begin adding the darker shade of brown. Once again, pipe the icing well within the parameters of the diamond, then pull it to the edge. Allow the icing to dry again. Pipe a raised white dot at each intersection. Use thick piping icing for this. You don't want the icing to spread or settle into the crevices at this stage. Dip a finger in water and use a wet fingertip to smooth out the dots so they are perfectly rounded. I don't recommend holding the water over the gingerbread part like I just did though. If you drip water onto the icing, it will leave a mark, and you don't want that. This delicate pattern has a subtle ombre effect to it. It involves piping on the surface of walls that have already been iced. Begin by marking circles around each round window using cookie cutters and a knife. Proceed by creating 5 increasingly dark tones of piping icing, beginning with the lightest tone and ending with the darkest tone. Use a toothpick to color the icing. Do not cut the tips of the bags yet. Store them in a piece of plastic wrap. Begin with the tip of the bag directly on the surface of the cookie. Then lift the bag and drag it slowly through the air so the icing falls into place. Allowing the icing to fall like this yields cleaner, more consistent lines. Fuse the ends together by rubbing them with the tip of a toothpick. Proceed by completing this step and all the subsequent steps on each wall piece. Using the same color of icing, pipe small stitches in a radiating pattern around the inner circle. Touch the tip to the cookie, lift the bag, and touch the tip back down again to connect the stitches and sever the flow of the icing. Turn the cookie as you work so the part you are working on is always facing you. This will create uniform stitches. As soon as you have completed this step on all the walls of the house, you may retire the bag. Now, with the next darker shade of icing, pipe a circle around the edge of the stitches. Here I'm using the tip of the bag like a toothpick to adjust the position of the icing and fuse the ends of the circle shut. Repeat the pattern of the radial stitches, nestling them into the gaps left by the previous round. As soon as you have completed this step on all the walls of the house, you may retire the bag. Continue in this manner for 2 more rounds, each time following with the next darker shade of icing. Finally, end with a thick ruffle around the edges to frame the design. Now we will begin to explore some more examples of overpiping, which involves multiple layers of piped icing, resulting in a 3D effect. Begin by marking squares around each window using a cookie cutter and a knife. Proceed by squaring them off with white piping icing. Add a layer of stitches next. When it's time to switch directions, turn the cookie so you can continue to pipe in the same direction. Add a dot of icing to each corner. Add one diagonal stitch to each corner. Pipe a second, larger square, this time framing the stitches. Pivot on the dots at the corners, using them as guideposts. Pipe a third, smaller square, framing the interior of the stitches. Pipe a fourth square, this time on top of the first one. This layer rests on top of the stitches. Frame each square with a ruffle. Use flood icing for this. Once the ruffle has dried, square it off with a contrasting layer of dark orange icing. After assembling the house, as I was piping the chocolate-colored trim, I decided to frame all of the decorations with it too. Here is a more advanced overpiping method. This involves many more layers of piped icing to create flower boxes and window frames. Start with walls that have been previously iced. Mark them with a cookie cutter and a knife to create diamond and V shapes. Then use a ruler to mark straight lines on the top and bottom. Arrange the walls that will eventually meet so that they are lined up side by side. That way, the horizontal decorations will continue seamlessly all the way around the house once it's assembled. Following the straight lines that were just marked, begin adding a white picket pattern to each piece. On this part, leave a gap where the front vestibule will eventually go. Add lines to the side roof pieces as well. Add a horizontal ruffle to frame each picket pattern. Now begin making the flower boxes and window frames with a solid line topped with a ruffled edge. Once the first layer is complete, add a second on top. Continue adding layers in this manner. On the V-shaped flower boxes, begin angling in the layers slightly. This part doesn't have to look perfect, as it won't show in the end. Once you have enough layers to make a decent flower holder, begin piping perpendicularly, stitching up and around each of the containers. Fuse any loose parts with a toothpick. Frame the containers with a nice ruffle. To make mini roses, pipe swirls onto a flower nail using a small petal tip. As the swirl widens, angle the tip outward so the outer part of the flower is open. Allow the flowers and walls to dry completely. Once the parts are dry, pipe green icing out of a leaf tip. Use the green icing to connect the flowers to their containers. The roof pieces on this house were designed with basic horizontal lines. Note that I've started in the middle, using the help of a ruler. Starting in the middle makes it easier to maintain symmetry. Note also how I'm not touching the tip of the piping bag to the surface of the cookie. Instead, I'm dragging it through the air, so the icing falls into neat lines. This concludes the Piping Techniques 2 video.